Greetings from the future, tales from the metaverse. Today we're going to be talking about education in the metaverse and how it's really changing the face of education and making it easier to go to school.
Because there is so much education to go out there, even how to put the headset on, how to use it, and then what would be the experience that you would like to experience in there? Would you like to be social? Would you like to do games? Um, there's so many possibilities with it
No,
of the
definitely.
metaverse.
In fact, I mean, one of my first VR experiences was attending a VR Unity school right here in Old Space VR, where we in fact went through 3 courses on building worlds, building games, building various things, and it was rather fun. When we graduated, we all got into the graduation space and went up onto the stage in VR and got a VR or certificate.
Did you make the certificate an NFT?
Say, because of today's world and the ease with which one can forge papers, there are a lot of people out there with phony degrees, and I think it's important that we be able to validate that experience.
This kind of technology to be able to use it, for example, in a standard classroom for children, for grown-ups. So how can we maintain the same type of interaction that people have in school? And is it possible to get a class of 20, 30 pupils into VR glasses?
I actually love that. And you think about an art class as well. Like now we can bring arts back into the schools, music, all of these things. We can be, art is transforming itself as well. You can make yourself your NFT in this world and put it out there. And what is art is like defining all of that. And if you think about from a history point, there's going to be so many things that are going to need to be built. So people are going to be helping create all of these things to share with people. And I feel like that's where it comes into where the more people participating, we can really kind of build it as we go for the future generations to then go in and be able to experience it and go, oh, there's such a power in that.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that we're actually seeing a lot of, is that there are now history tours that take people back to ancient times, and so you can, walk amongst the Egyptian pyramids, for instance, or the ruins in Greece, or before they were ruins, and actually see people, doing what they did in those days. So again, yeah, you can immerse yourself in the technology, learn by it.
I had a little example. I don't know if it makes sense to play that from the beginning, because this is not just for students. It's about chemistry. It's about molecules, and just to show our visitors what we're talking about.
Well, my first representation was with Lewis dot structures, which the more I went on to study chemistry, the more I was like, well, what does like a fluorine F really mean? Like, what does fluorine look like?
When I noticed field of virtual reality, I ran into Nanom, and with VR, one has ability to step and walk into molecules, between molecules, manipulate molecules.
I remember I wasn't manipulating the molecule, I was watching it, and I just thought, I never thought I could get inside of a protein. Like, I was literally inside of the protein.
The main advantage that I see in this technique is that it is immediately obvious. It provides information practically instantaneously. This qualitative experience allows one to start thinking fast. I would almost dare to say orders of magnitude quicker, especially compared to two-dimensional screen. I showed this software to experienced crystallographers who use different kinds of stereoscopic viewing. Were stunned they had spent years resolving a particular crystal structure. And then when I showed them the same molecule in VR, in minutes, they gained completely new perspective. Oh, I was not aware that there's so much space here. This active center is so much spacious. This software allows something that I hadn't been able to experience in any kind of macromolecular visualization before. And I would suggest to anyone who is in macromolecular analysis and structure to consider that technological leap.
I feel like I always wonder what the next step is, and this was a next step that I would not have expected. I thought that Discovery Studio was the best thing ever. So to be surprised like that was pretty shocking, and I can't even imagine what levels this could go to, like, in the future.
I think what those people said was really important in terms of learning, like the different perspective. And who would have thought that watching molecules from a different perspective would give such a big impact? Because as one person said, he could or she could see how much space is in there, like really getting into the point, something that you will never be able to be in the natural world. To step inside, have a look around and say, oh, I thought it would be tighter, I thought things would more interact or whatever. You get a real different perception probably of the whole topic. And human beings are learning and understanding always by touching something, by exploring something. We do that very precisely in the real world. If we have something, we will touch it, we will see what is the structure and so on. With those topics like molecular structures, for example, we are not able to do it. Just can use tools and have photos. But now we've got this possibility to step inside and get this other impression. It's easy to adopt that to architecture. Having the possibility to interact with the environment, that is so important, to be able to say, what happens when I'm shifting this pillar from left to right? And having physical feedback, because the system can render physical reactions to your action that you're doing in virtual reality.
Yeah, good point about architecture. That is something that I've seen. In fact, I think that was one of the initial big interests that people started showing towards virtual reality, because all of a sudden they could put up a building in virtual reality and have people go into the building and say, well, no, I think this needs to be changed, or this isn't aesthetically pleasing, or this might be dangerous, without having to build models or without having to build the building and then find out that there's a problem. So yes, extremely useful in so many fields.
As you look at education over the last, let's say, 5 decades, it went from like the book. You could literally just read about, these historic events that happened. And now, I love the transition when it went to like the History Channel, was recreating, bringing the actors in and recreating these events. How magical is it to go and experience these historic things? This is for people of all ages and different time periods, and it's so powerful.
It's a lot of work in preparation. It's a lot of work in animation and so on. So at the moment, you cannot do that in a short amount of time. If you're a teacher, history teacher, and you think, I would like to present a scene from Roman Senate, for example, like where Caesar was speaking or whatever, it's hard to recreate that if you're just a teacher. You're getting to new technologies like real-time engines, like the Unreal Engine, like Unity, that's providing more and more possibilities to animate characters, bring real-time characters in, And also people that have no, let's say, detailed knowledge about all these different fields of animation and creation will be able in the future to set up sceneries.
I was going to say where I think that's really going to like explode, so to speak, is when we get AI and we can feed all of the historical facts about those people, or at least as much as we know, into the computer, and the computer can then mimic what it thinks those people would have said, done, etc., which I think is going to be very, very interesting.
For sure, yeah, artificial intelligence will for sure will be a big part, especially when you train your AI on impersonating people where you have a lot of data. Different approach, for sure, interesting. I mean, for school class that are doing that like a lecture, and they are going into a role and impersonating, and by this transporting their knowledge, what they learned about a figure, would be very interesting concept to do. Sure, absolutely.
Is holograms, where people are going to be, congregating as a hologram, and the headset will eventually go away, which will be very, very, very interesting.
For sure, the different ways of transporting all those images. Also, volumetric videos, for example, in this case, can be a very interesting approach. So you could record a play of some people that are impersonating Caesar or whatever, and then you can replay that.
You can actually put on a lecture, record the lecture in Engage, and then replay your presentation to an audience, which is rather cool.
Hey, Share Bear.
Hello.
Hello,
I just want to
welcome.
make a one comment. It's not a far jump because I got my whole degree. I have a bachelor in nursing degree. I gotten it all over online from Liberty University out of New York when I actually lived here in Tampa, Florida. So it's not a far cry from now that to the metaverse giving us our education, but you have to make sure then, is it going to be credentialized that other people will accept it? Like my degree is accepted all over United States because it's credentialized from a university. So those are main points that you would have to really look into. The credentialization of it all. Is it going to be accepted in other states? But I'm all for it. I think that this is definitely the way to go, and it is going to be a wonderful experience. And I can't wait to start taking classes.
Just one
Kids are
question for you.
sure.
Do you know other people in your working environment that think the same like you, that have the same experience already in social VR, and that think like learning in this environment would be interesting for them?
Oh, I'm sure, because a lot of my peers have gotten their degrees online from a credentialized university. So I'm sure that they are in the same mindset as me, that it can only get with virtual reality even that much more, uh, that it's just that much more. So,
Okay, awesome.
It
Thanks
makes
a
it
lot.
very convenient. I did one of my masters the traditional way by driving to school every day, and it was rather painful, for the I think it was what, 2 years, and the other one I did online, and that was very, very easy to do. The hardest part was being self-disciplined. That's the issue that I found in
yes.
terms of, learning without a structured classroom environment. A lot of it is up to you to do. If people aren't self-disciplined, they tend to have a lot of problems with it.
That's very true. You have to have a lot of control on your discipline to be very focused to do it. You just got to make it the mindset that this is what you want to do and this is where you want to end up. But yes, and a lot of people that might not work. So that is a point to consider. for sure. But thank you.
I think this is so important to think about those different types of education that we have. We do not just have the classical school education or universal university education. We do, and we will see much more education in our everyday life. This lifelong learning, we had this topic several times already, is so important, and it should be heavily supported by those new technologies. If it's virtual reality or augmented reality, anything that can bring us topics and content in a very easy way nearer should be used heavily, in my opinion.
That's a great point, Chris, because it's, it's, for example, if someone wants to learn more about, say, Africa or another country, and they can't afford to jump on a plane and go to a hotel and whatever.
This is for sure a very good point. And again, this is so important for any kind of training on the job when you are starting your new job, or for example. A lot of companies are doing that at the moment. Again, this is one of the first things I saw that was training for people that are maintaining those big windmills, and what do they have to do for safety reasons, and so on and so on. Safety instructions anyways are done a lot, like fire safety instructions and so on. So yeah, this safe environment, as you said, is for sure one of the biggest and most interesting points that the metaverse probably, or social VR will provide.
Well, imagine like, these situations, right? Like there's a fire going on in the school, and then everyone needs to leave the building, or in the alarm, or in your apartment building. You can't really, you can buzz an alarm and then everybody leaves. But in here in VR, you could actually create the experience of like, there is a fire, and maybe the fire's been burning for 35 minutes, and you literally, like, you get there and there's a timer and you need to get out of this place.
That's one of the earlier uses of augmented reality that actually has proved to be extremely useful, is putting people into these emergency situations, as you say, a fire, and they can see the fire burning, they can, hear the sounds and everything else, but obviously there is no fire, but they have to react accordingly. Any last comments or thoughts?
I feel like some of the biggest things with VR and experiencing it, you need to crawl before you walk, before you run.
I'm really, really excited to see what will be possible in the future for students, but also for us grown-ups, for our lives, for our daily work. What can we get out of all these technologies? I'm really excited.
Thank you all for coming.